Hi, my name is Pawel. For a quick background, I used to be a Java developer and then I gradually moved to the dark side, and currently I'm taking care of several teams of DevOps and developers at Xibia Poland. Today, I would like to present you a topic of imposter syndrome. Let's start with a quick background. What is imposter syndrome? What is not an imposter syndrome? Who should be concerned? What is the science around this? We'll then look into the mind of a person with imposter syndrome. We'll see how they think. We'll explore some risks, what things can go wrong, and what are places you can find yourself. We'll look at some mechanisms. The understanding of mechanisms by itself is a little bit helpful, but we'll also look at some particular solutions, tips, and tricks on how to deal with imposter syndrome. Right, so start with the background. What is an imposter syndrome? What is not? Should be concerned, and what's the science there? Basically, imposter syndrome is a kind of like psychological pattern or mild personality dysfunction where a person doubts their skills, abilities, intelligence to do the job. The person doesn't believe it should be the place where they are. For instance, if there are some senior developers, they don't believe they should be senior. If they were hired in some company, they don't believe that it should be hired, despite some obvious external evidence of their competence, right? And there is also this constant fear that somebody at some point will find out that we are impostors, and then the terrible things will happen. We'll be fired, we'll be demoted, our wife leaves us, or the dogs will walk away, the fishes will swim away, or something like this. So there is this constant and long-lasting feeling that may take several months, even years. So the science behind this, there was a paper in the late 70s by Pauline Clance and Susan Eames, and they were researching, say, the environment of high-achieving women, right? So women in academia, with titles, professors, doctors, with a lot of research papers, and also in business, directors, CEOs, etc. And there was this recurring feeling that they don't belong there, they are not good enough, and also somebody at some point will find out that they are imposters. Initially, it was thought that it's mostly about women, but then later research proved that imposter syndrome works on both genders, in fact. Who should be concerned? So surprisingly, a lot of us. So depending on the research you look at, there is between 50 or 80 or even 90% of people who are experiencing imposter syndrome at some point of their lives. It might happen at many points. For instance, if you're starting the career, you're a junior developer, you think that I shouldn't be hired here in the first place, but there are different expectations between junior and senior, of course. And if you're a junior, you still might have this experience of 5 years of computer science study, etc. Somebody decided to recruit you to the company. Right? It might happen when you're switching the careers. So if you used to be a developer, you're moving to management, or used to be QA, to development, or architect, or whatever else in direction, something is changing. There's a high risk of getting an imposter syndrome. And also especially for people that are somewhere really high, right? You have a lot of achievements, you are maybe a famous actor, some kind of celebrity, or somebody at the top of the company. That's quite possible that the imposter syndrome will be the strongest here. So it is connected with intelligence, right? So intelligent people have this tendency to overthink some problems and over-prepare for issues that are not really there. It's connected with perfectionism. So if you want to have things done perfectly or not at all, that might be a problem. And it's connected, speaking of the big 5 of personality traits, there is this neuroticism, the trait that if you are highly neurotic, basically you feel a lot of fear, strong emotions, stuff like this. You're not very emotionally stable. And this is also something that makes you prone to feel like an imposter and experience this fear, right? It's not imposter syndrome. So it's not about imposter syndrome if you're an actual fraud. So if you say on purpose that you can do something, but you can't, trying to make somebody believe that you are good, but you are not. Not about momentary doubt, because all of us have those doubts, right? At some point, at some moment, we might feel that we are not good enough. We had a bad day or even week. But imposter syndrome is about having this issue for months or even years. It's not really a mental illness per se. So there is no international code of diseases code for that, although I've read some research in a British paper where they are considering making it unethical mental illness. It's not about humbleness per se. Humbleness is a nice trait, but if it stops you from doing some nice stuff and exploring the company and the world, that's a problem. And as I mentioned, it's not really specific to women, right? It was initially thought that it's about women, but it turns out that both genders are affected. Maybe women a little bit more. It also works for ethnical minorities, right? Because if you are in any kind of minority, you might feel stronger need to prove yourself. And there might be an additional doubt. It makes you prone to the imposter syndrome. So if you Google top 10 celebrities with imposter syndrome, you'll probably find a lot of quotes like this. That seems that I'm somewhere by mistake, and every time I appear there, I have to prove that I'm actually good. Or maybe no matter at what point of your career you arrive, you still wonder how did you get there, and you are being afraid of being discovered, right? There's this recurring theme of being discovered as a fraud and then losing everything. And there is this feeling of inadequacy, and again, this theme of somebody will find out they're not a fraud and everything will be lost. Okay, so now let's look into the mind of a person with imposter syndrome. So what's the thinking there? So whenever we have some success due to our skills or abilities, we will actually attribute this to one of two things. One of those things are external factors in general. So I was able to do something because I was lucky, right? There were some favorable circumstances. So for instance, I was the only person in the recruitment process, so they had to hire me, of course. Maybe I was able to deceive the recruiter that in fact I'm better than that I really am. Right? Maybe there was some misjudgment on their part. So maybe I was speaking with an engineering manager, who is not a technical person, so he was not able to really judge my technical skills. He just thought that, hey, I'm a nice person, maybe I should be hired. Maybe it's about connections, right? I was able to quit a job or do something because of my connections. And here, disclaimer, connections are not something really bad, right? It's a part of your network, is a part of your assets, like a skill or ability or experience. So do not be afraid to use your connections as an asset. Of course, I'm not talking about some pathological situations like in politics, probably, but just have use of your network. So this is one possibility. I was successful because of external factors. Okay. The other possibility is overwork. So I was successful because I put additional hours. Like I was doing countless reviews. I was doing the overwork and without even logging this in a company system, right? Because I will be discovered that I'm a fraud because I should be able to do this faster, right? Not spend that much time. So either external factors or overwork. That's our thinking. It also notes that all of us have this kind of a belief filter, belief system in our head. So because the world is a complicated place, we do some simplification, some explanation how things work, some categories. We put people, things in some categories, right? And this belief system forms up until you're 20, more or less 20 years old, 20, 25. And later it's a little bit difficult to change that. If you are getting some information that contradicting your belief system, you will try to, if it's not fitting very well, you can try to bend it a little bit to fit. But if it's try to contradict your system, you might just plainly discard the feedback or the information. So it'll be important a little bit later. Now, zeros and ones. We are in computer science, so zeros and ones seems to be some nice thing. But in the end, I'm thinking about this perfectionism here again, right? So if you're a perfectionist, everything is either 0, total trash, or 1, perfect. And we know that nothing is really perfect. So even if it's 0, if it's 90, 98%, 99%, anything, we just round this down to 0. It's trash for you. This is a problem with imposter syndrome. Because you might think that almost everything that you do is actually trash, while in fact it's almost perfect. How does it all translate to IT or to technical work or knowledge work in general? So in general, we have mostly smart people in IT, or at least who choose to be so. So it's about this intelligence that I mentioned earlier. I'm sure intelligent, you're thinking about a lot of problems and sometimes overthinking. It might not be very good. Our industry is intangible. What does this mean? So it's difficult to judge the quality of what we do, right? If you look at some counter examples from classical craftsmanship, for instance, let's take medieval blacksmith who is forging swords. You can take the sword into your hand, right? You can check if it's balanced. You can check if it has a sharp edge. You can see if it has some maybe nice ornaments, if it looks good. If you think about baker or painter or anything like this, it's similar. We are used to judging this type of quality. But in IT, what we do is sometimes magical for people outside our field, right? So it's, for instance, let's do an experiment and let's try to describe to your grandmother that you prepared a nice suite of automated tests, or method has a low cyclomatic complexity. It's difficult. And whenever it is difficult to explain what we do, it's an area where there's a lot of doubt, and the feeling of being impostor might be magnified here. Maybe it's a little easier on the, say, front end or design side, creating some UIs or websites, etc. You can look at the website, say that it has some nice animations, buttons, etc. But it's more difficult on this, maybe more backend or obscure areas of what we do. Also, our industry is growing rapidly. So Uncle Bob, around I believe 8 or 9 years ago, mentioned that on average, the median experience of a software developer is 5 years. So half of the developers have less than 5 years of experience. There is a great influx of people into the industry. Those people are creating a lot of things that other people use. So if you have a new version of languages, libraries, new framework, new methodologies, we can do a lot of things in, let's say, different layers of abstraction or software, the construction of our software and systems. And it makes you think that after a few years, there is so much things going on, so much technology, so much knowledge and skills, and you should be learning all of that. But in fact, it's impossible. It's just too much. Just a small portion of it, and it's normal. And then we have this, let's say, approach, fake it till you make it. So you are hearing about some companies that are curing cancer in the garage, or fixing the problem of shortage in Africa, right? And it might be overwhelming. So everything on the social media should be consumed with a grain of salt. All right, let's move on to risks. What can basically go wrong with imposter syndrome, and what dark places you can visit as a result? First of all, and you have this constant fear that somebody will discover that you're an imposter, you have to have this constant process of defense, right? You have to check who is in the room, what you can say, what is safe, and basically consumes your energy, because it's like this process running in your head, consuming your mental energy or willpower, if you will, or if you compare to computer in the cycles of your processor, right? Which makes you exhausted at the end of the day. If you're afraid that something bad will happen, you'll be discovered, it might lead to some anxiety states. There's the whole topic of burnout. There's like 12 stages of burnout, a lot of presentation, long topic. But in the end, it can lead to some really nasty places with mental problems, such as depression and similar. Furthermore, there might be a problem with balance, right? If you choose this path of overwork, then you can sacrifice your private life. You might have an issue with relationship, because if you don't want to be discovered as frauds, then you will naturally avoid people, either at work but also privately. So we keep people at distance. There's the thing with procrastination. So basically, you might want to avoid situation where you will be tested. So somebody can find out that you're an imposter. And this in turn might lead to issue with priorities. So imagine you have a sprint. There are some important tasks and less important tasks, or maybe easier and harder tasks. So you might want to focus on the stuff that you are comfortable with, not the stuff that really matter. And in the end, it might actually lead to failing the sprint. And changes, people with imposter syndrome might be naturally afraid of changes, because that's a moment of test where somebody might find out that they are imposters or perceived imposters. So you might want to avoid looking for a new job, or maybe changing a project within your current organization, and miss many opportunities. What else can be missed, right? So knowledge. Basically, in order to learn new skills and develop, you have to get out of your comfort zone just a little bit. So if you're afraid of being discovered, you'll just naturally stick to things that you know well. You might miss some occasions for promotion, the company, maybe some pay raise, and also the company, the team, the whole IT and industry misses ideas and knowledge that you might be providing because you are afraid to speak up, or afraid that what you say is stupid or something like this. Right. Let's look at some mechanisms, like psychological patterns and stuff around that. And knowledge about this is helpful by itself, as we'll also get to some concrete tips later on. So first of all, the sheer realization that there is something like an impostor syndrome, right? It's not that there is something wrong with me, it's just a psychological thing, impostor syndrome. This is the first thing that if you realize that, you might be in a much better place. The second thing is, this is very common. It's not like it's 1 or 2% of people. It's basically half of us probably watching this. And also it's probably to some extent solvable. Whether it's fully solvable or not, that's slightly philosophical questions. Can you get rid of all your demons and stuff like this? It's hard to say, but you can for sure diminish the effect of that, and you can learn how to deal with that. For instance, how to drink tea with your demons and live with them, right? In order not to be too softish in this talk, I have some diagram for you. So this is the central mechanism in impostor syndrome, the impostor cycle. We're running in some kind of cycles. And how does it look? So we start with tasks. Start with a task. We approach this. We have some anxiety. We have some worry about this. Can we make it this time? Maybe they will discover this time that I'm impostor. But at some point, we have to make a choice and do something. So we have two paths to choose here. We can either go with over preparation. So it's additional time, overwork, the time that I'm not even logging in the system. I make countless reviews, countless fixes, etc. Like a lot of knowledge, additional effort. Or maybe I can go the procrastination route. So I assume that's okay. There's nothing to be done. They will just discover that I'm an impostor, right? Or on the other hand, maybe I will be lucky this time, but I just want to postpone this pressure and feeling that I will be tested. So it reminds me of the situation on the university when I was studying that there is an exam in half an hour or something like this. And at some point I just decide I'm cramming from the book, in front of the room. At some point I just decide to close the book, put it away, get up, get some walk, get some fresh air, etc. I don't want to think about this. And this is like a procrastination mechanism. Whichever path we choose, in the end, since we are competent and intelligent, etc., we are able to succeed in this task, right? So we have this accomplishment, we have the relief that, okay, maybe this time I was able to somehow slip by, right? I got the positive feedback, and here is the time when this filter kicks in our heads that, hey, we are not really good, we are not intelligent, so whatever they are saying, they are just nice or whatever, doesn't fit my belief system, so I discard it or bend it. Because I have an explanation on what happened. It was either the extra effort, I put additional hours, and this is the reason why I succeeded. Somebody else would be able to do this in much shorter time, or it was just a luck. So I was able to succeed because of some favorable circumstances, because I didn't put that much effort. Right, so I'm not really, in my head there is this image that I'm not really this smart, intelligent, capable person, but there are some other explanations, some external factors, extra effort or luck. So I just continue all this positive feedback. Now my perception of being an impostor kind of increases with each cycle, and then we arrive on another task and the cycle repeats, basically. Another interesting bias in our thinking, the perception of knowledge. Right? So we have those mechanisms to simplify the world. So we have this categories for people. You might have the category of general developer, like general manager, general QA, etc. And you assume that they are mostly similar. So what happens is that if we talk to one person, say developer one, get a piece of information A, talk to another developer, get another piece of information, third developer, the third piece of information. In our head, what happens is that all those developers merge into this one developer, generic developer, who knows all of those things. So each of those developers knows all of those things. And We might think that a general developer knows really a lot when we don't. And this is the left picture, but the reality is that the knowledge of various people might be similar in size to ours, the right picture. Another interesting effect is the Dunning-Kruger effect. There's basically a relationship between confidence and competence. Whenever we gain some competence in some new skill or some new path, quite quickly we are getting a lot of confidence. And disclaimer, people are not very good at differentiating confidence and competence. If somebody is speaking with competence, we assume that the person is confident. We assume that the person is competent as well. What happens is when we learn a new skill, something starts working, we are through this green path, some early successes, and our confidence shoot up. We are reaching the speed of Mount Stupid where we think that we are really good. But then we notice that, okay, we made some mistakes, maybe we changed some projects, had some fuck-ups, we realize how broad the field really is, and we are falling quite quickly from this peak of Mount Stupid into the valley of despair. And our confidence is decreasing quite rapidly. Now, in order to regain this confidence, it takes time, a lot of experience, and with years of experience, we are regaining our confidence as we are reaching this plateau of sustainability. Okay? And how is this relevant to imposter syndrome? Basically, somebody is in this valley of despair or climbing the slope of enlightenment, and if you meet a person who's on the peak of Mount Stupid, assume that this person is confident, right? Competent. It's confident. If it's confident, it should be competent. And we think that, hey, this person has 2-3 times less experience than us, but it's quite competent. Maybe it's something wrong with me. When in reality, we might be in different places on an imposter Kruger effect chart, right? So we shouldn't be too worried about this. From my experience for software development, basically, Mount Stupid is somewhere around 1.5 years in a career. It's the experience from technical recruitment, but probably a little bit of myself as well. So we have these people who say I have 9 out of 10 in Java, 9 out of 10 in SQL, depending which type you're on, etc. And this recruiter will give me money, etc. Good. But then they realize that maybe they are not that good after all. Other interesting effects is the spotlight effect. So basically, think of ourselves, we are much more egoistic than we would like to admit. Okay, so we mostly focus on ourselves, and we think that other people focus on us as well, which they do not. For instance, imagine that you are in this group photo situation, right? You have the photo taken, you're examining it, and what's the first thing that you do? Probably look at yourself, whether your tie is straight or whether you are not staying with some kind of salt or something like this. So other people are not really that actively looking at us and at our mistakes. And because of that, we shouldn't be that afraid to speak up, to talk, to exchange ideas, etc., because we won't be judged that much as we think. Another thing worth knowing is the curse of knowledge. Small children have this feature that they assume that everyone else knows and feels the same as they do. And we grow up from that to an extent, okay? Because there are those classical misunderstanding to technical people and business people where they assume that the other party knows the same as they do. But also, I had this experience 2 years of being the Java Guild Master to our company. And part of the job was looking for people that would like to speak on our quarterly, say, internal conferences. And it was difficult because people were shy, that's one thing, but also they were thinking that they have nothing to say, interesting to say to other people, that everyone else knows this, what they do, right? And it's not really true because people have different sets of knowledge. And if you're a senior developer, you might have a lot of experience, probably have a lot of experience that you can just share with other people. If you're a junior developer, you might just know some library or a new version of language that others don't. And this is also a valuable topic. So basically, whenever you think that you don't have anything interesting to say because other people knows that, there's a lot of people who don't, right? So it's worth to try and present stuff to other people, right? Well, let's move to some concrete solutions and tips for dealing with imposter syndrome. First of all, once I encountered the thread on Twitter, or X, or whatever it is called now. Basically, the idea is that there were people from computer science, IT, but also engineering and other stuff with a lot of years of experience in their fields. And they were mentioning some seemingly basic stuff that they have to Google or look up or check in notes or copy from previous projects, etc. So especially for junior people, it might seem that if you're a Java developer, something you have to know everything about Java and everything about your framework, etc. Or in fact, I will tell you a secret: everyone Googles stuff, basically, right? Copies from previous projects, etc. My personal confession is that I used to write in Java for 12 or more years, and currently I don't remember how to read a file to the memory, file from the disk into the memory. I always have to Google that because there are nested streams, etc. I had to know this probably 10 years ago at some point when I was doing the certification, but not anymore. Right, so basically, don't think that you should know everything everyone is Googling. That's okay. A few words about comparisons. We tend to compare ourselves to other people, but this is not really a good idea because you have different materials for comparison, right? You can compare this to object-oriented programming. If you look at people as objects, if you look at yourself, you have access to your variables and the history of your states and what you are doing, how you are feeling, etc. But if you look at other people, you only just see the public belief system, internal belief system. So the only really good comparison is if you are comparing yourself to your earlier snapshots in time of yourself, right? Look at you, what have you learned in the previous month, previous year, 10 years, or whatever, and this is some kind of comparison that you can use. All others are probably wrong. Right, a little bit about imperfections. Spanish people have this art of fixing broken ceramic with gold, right? They have this notion that the ceramic or some object, a piece of work, or a person is broken, then that makes them unique, and they have soul because of that, right? So whenever you think of yourself that your work is broken or you are broken, you might just think that, hey, you have a soul, you are unique, actually unique, and this is positive. All right. A little bit about computer games, right? Achievements in computer games. So we have achievements in computer games for a reason, because they release a little bit of dopamine on your bloodstream, makes you feel better. Whenever you're really not feeling very well, you might think about creating a list of achievements for yourself, right? A list of, projects that you did, some schools you went to, studies, books that you have read, some courses that you finished, etc. Stuff like this. This might be kind of similar to a CV, maybe a LinkedIn profile, but maybe something else. And whenever you're in this not a very good mood, you can get back to this list and see that, hey, I achieved so much. I'm not that bad. Some people say that it works better if it's in physical form. So we have all those clouds, but in the end, if you write it down on the piece of paper, put it in a drawer, it might have quite a bit more power to our analog mind, let's say. Paper, of course, besides that, you're good. Again, about social media, if you see anything on social media, any successes, etc., I should keep in mind that everything is filtered, everything was chosen to be there. And also it's going through your internal belief filters. So you should take it with a grain of salt. About job ads, so yeah, we have the space unicorns, you can say. Sometimes you can see a list of requirements, very long list of requirements of various stuff on the job ads, but you should be aware that those are mostly wish lists, right? So the employer doesn't require you to know all of that, maybe just some of that. There's a piece of trivia about the IBM in, I believe, late 70s. There was a research how people respond to internal job ads for internal projects. It turned out that men were applying when they met about 60% of criteria, but women usually had to meet 90%. So ladies were maybe not that competent, at least at confidence, at least at this time. All right. So our brains, reptile brain. We have to be aware that our brains have these layers that were created during the process of evolution over hundreds of millions of years. We have these primitive parts that basically take care of our basic instincts, survival instincts, and reacting to threats. So whenever you're, say, coding or doing some difficult mental work, and you find yourself at this position that you're stuck. You don't know what to do. You don't understand how something works. You start to worry, right? That I'm not that good. They will fire me. It's terrible. You start to feel this fear. And whenever the fear sets in, basically cuts off your, let's say, the new part of the brain, the neocortex that does all the thinking and programming and stuff, and leaves everything to this primitive part that deals with threats and security. So whenever you think that you're afraid and you think that, my God, I'm stupid, you're basically making yourself stupid. The flow to the neocortex is reduced, and this is the self-fulfilling prophecy, basically. So whenever you find yourself in this situation, it's better to break away from this thought, just get up, get a walk, get something to drink, talk to somebody, etc. Just try to detect this pattern and not succumb to all those dark thoughts there. A little bit about talent. So does something like talent exist or not? So Edison has this famous quote that 99% of success is hard work, just 1% is talent. In general, people who are successful usually just are persistent. So they are trying some things in a different way many times to make it work. And in order to do that, you probably have to like it just a little bit, to experiment many times. Basically, my advice is to look around in the company, the industry, because our industry is quite broad. You can do a lot of things, really. You can be developer, QA, architect, DevOps. You can be some agile role, so Scrum role, maybe some management, etc. There's really a lot of things to do. And you shouldn't be measuring the developers just by the number of lines of code or something like this. Right? Even if you want to just keep the label of developer, you can be developer and do a lot of things. You can have some attitudes. You can be better at talking to people, organizing something. Maybe you're more on the DevOps stuff. Maybe you are just this person, like a good spirit of the team. But if removed from the projects, basically breaks the whole team, and you lose 3 people, in fact, just one person. If you effectively work with 3 people, something like that. So try to look around and see what's there and experiment and be able to find a better niche for yourself just within the industry. A bit about recruitment. So if you have a chance to be technical recruiter, it's a nice opportunity to see that people don't really sometimes know the things that you do. So this knowledge is different for different people. Of course, it's also a trap because you might have this urge to come up with some difficult questions that nobody will really know by heart. Everybody is just looking at the documentation. But it's not a good idea because I think with recruitment is that we just want to get nice people for our company to lift your ego. However, you can also get something from yourself in the process. Just don't be nasty. A little bit about remote work, right? So a lot of us are just working fully remotely, even though we have office in our town or vicinity. So whenever you think that maybe you have this you feel like impostor, and if you go to your cave or just don't talk to people, just work remotely all the time, it reduces the risk of being discovered, right? But if you want to be cured for imposter syndrome, you have to expose yourself to the stressor, actually. So it's a nice idea if you have possibility to sometimes just go to work, talk with people, and it will help you a little bit. Well, we are in the topic of talking. There's this trick if you suspect that you're a team leader, which is a good teammate, and suspect that you have some people with heavy imposter syndrome around you. The last trick is to talk to them and be a little bit vulnerable, maybe tell something about how you screw up at some time, you are not feeling very secure, etc. The idea is to just normalize that we are not perfect at work. Right? Sometimes we screw up, and we don't have to be perfect. And maybe over time it will just normalize this idea. There was a nice book by George Brzezinski called Klaskologia. It's a bit difficult to translate to English. It's like the science of patting on the butt, or on the back, or on the head. But basically, there's an idea that we have this container of sweetness in us, and we fill this container but by saying something nice or having in general nice interactions with people. And then we take away from this tank when we have some difficult interactions. We have to give some difficult feedback or something like that. And of course, The idea here is that when the tank is empty, it's not good to take away from this tank because there's nothing there and you will meet with some difficult reaction probably. So before you have some difficult interactions in mind with a person, it's good to fill this tank a little bit. So add some positive interaction. Say something nice. It can be something, social message on Teams or Facebook or whatever on that person. And last but not least, day shift therapy. Maybe in Poland, there is a little bit of social stigma that, okay, I'm not crazy, I will not go to therapist, but in States or Western Europe, it's much more normalized, right? Most people have their shrieks. Don't be ashamed of asking for help and talking to a professional. There's really no shame in that. If you are feeling overwhelmed or dealing with some issues, a lot of companies, especially after the COVID-19, have some programs that can support you in that. Some free therapy hours or something like that. Checking your company, maybe they have something, right? If you want to test yourself, there's of course a possibility of that. If you Google Clan's IP scale, IP here stands from impostor phenomenon. That's basically a 20 question test on impostor syndrome with questions rated 1 to 5. You'll put it into Google, you'll find a PDF with those questions. If you don't want to calculate it manually, you can look at psychtest.org or some other websites where they have automated tests. I did 2 or 3 such tests, and after normalizing to 100%, it turned out that I'm around 42 or 43% still in imposter syndrome, so it didn't go away fully, but I believe at that time in much better spot than 10 years ago, for instance. So it's worth to work on that. So guys, this QR code is my LinkedIn, so you're welcome to join. I also have the Twitter or X or whatever you call it now while it's still working. And if you prefer to read, maybe not to look at presentations, I have a blog, which is called howtotrainyourjava.com. It's not really about Java for probably a few years now. It's more about general software and peopleware. And there is an article about imposter syndrome there as well, probably 5 or 6 posts ago. And there might be some additional links like to this Twitter thread and maybe some different approach to the problem. All right, so that's basically it. So take care of yourselves and people around you. And thank you very much.